Yes, everybody, welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Or, of course, if you are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel on the race for 10,000 subscribers, I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ here for a little initial reactions podcast, kind of looking at Carolina's Selection Sunday situation, where they fared, where they got placed in the NCAA tournament. And as most Carolina fans will already know by now, Carolina obviously an 8 seed in the East region, playing on Thursday. And if they win on Saturday in Fort Worth, Texas, obviously open up with number 9 seed Marquette in the first round on Thursday. If they win, we'll play the winner of number 1 seed Baylor, who are also the defending national champions, and Norfolk State in the number 1 and number 16 battle in that one. So AJ, East region for the Tar Heels, 8 seed in the tournament. We've talked a little bit about it. Kind of expected this team to go anywhere from a 7 seed to a 10 seed was kind of what we were hearing. 8 and 9 seemed to be the more likely of where they would end up. Carolina getting in that number 8 seed against a Marquette team that we'll obviously hit on later in the podcast. This is our initial reactions. We'll have a lot more coverage later this week as well, diving deeper into Marquette. And we'll also do some stuff from the media day at the tournament in Fort Worth as well. So looking forward to that one. But AJ, initial reactions from Carolina's Selection Sunday and how it played out?
Well, I guess Lenardi and those guys were. So I don't know exactly what he said, but I went through. There's this thing called bracketmatrix.com, and they put together 140 or 104 bracketologists. There are 104 bracketologists out there. What they put together for the tournament, what they projected, and an awful lot of it by last night had Carolina in Fort Worth playing in an 8-9 game. Now they had them playing Murray State, some had them playing Michigan State, and so. But Marquette was mentioned in there a few times as well. So I think, and they also had them in against Baylor, marked to play Baylor in the second round if they were to win, and Baylor shouldn't have trouble with Norfolk State, but shouldn't is the buzzword, especially since UMBC gave us the 16-1 a few years ago and they beat UVA. This is a real good test for the Tar Heels, but I kind of like it because there are some advantages that Carolina has in this game. And we're going to get much deeper into the matchup when we do a podcast later this week. And like you said, we'll do one from Fort Worth as well. But initially my thought is, well, the Tar Heels remember what happened last year when Marquette rolled into the Dean Dome when Carolina reached out, scheduled a game. A couple of days later, they played, and Marquette spanked them in the Smith Center. But, the guy who went off for Marquette that night was Dawson Garcia, who transferred to Carolina, and he's no longer at UNC, at least as far as this season goes. Don't want to go down that path right now. And then, of course, Theo John started for Marquette that night, and he is the primary big man reserve for Duke right now. There's a guy named Greg Elliott who scored 15 points that night. He's the only guy who played in that game for Marquette that is on this year's team that played in the game. Only 3 players were back. Steve Wojciechowski was fired. Shaka Smart came in kind of late, and a bunch of dudes just skedaddled, man. It's like the light went on, everybody just ran, right? And he had to put together a team, and he did. And Shaka's a good coach. He certainly, has an impact on teams when he first gets there, and they move. He's got a lot of athletes. They're not super big. They rotate 2 big guys who basically split minutes down the middle. They're not going to get a lot of production from them. So they're going to make Carolina kind of extend and defend, but Carolina should have a lot of advantages with respect to rebounding and the ability for Carolina to score all over the place, which is why I think Carolina is one of those teams that has a chance to make a run, because you have to defend really 1 through 5. And I say that because even though Leakey doesn't score a lot, the spots that he plays, Carolina gets points from. So even when he's not there, somebody else can score from those spots. So I kind of like that matchup for UNC. Baylor being the next game, playing them in Fort Worth, and it's not on TCU's campus. It's in an arena downtown, which has hosted a lot of college basketball games in the last few years. That's tough. That's a tough matchup. It's kind of a road game. Carolina's had the advantage of playing teams in Charlotte, in Greensboro, and Raleigh in the past before. So they kind of get to flip the script here a little bit and go on the road and play a team not too terribly far from campus, and where they're going to have a lot of fans. They're defending national champions. So you know what? With the way this Carolina team is going this season, Jacob, this is Hubert Davis's first year. They had an uptick late in the season Why not take on a quality team from the Big East that's got a very nice resume, by the way?
Yeah.
And then if you win that game, go ahead and take on the defending national champion, see where you are. I think North Carolina basketball is in flux a little bit right now because Hubert's learning how to do his thing. Might as well see who you are. Measure yourself up against the defending national champions, who, to their credit, is a number 1 seed again this year. So I think it's pretty cool.
I think it is too. We're going to obviously hit on, like we've mentioned, we're going to hit on the Marquette matchup in a lot deeper detail in the other podcasts we do starting next week. So you guys stay tuned for that. That's all we'll go deep into Marquette on in this one. I just want to hit on the bracket real quick. We're not going to go too long in this podcast and just look at some of the other teams around there. You obviously got Baylor as a number 1 seed, 26-6 on the year, finished second. Actually co-champions in the regular season share the Big 12 title with Kansas, lost in the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament. Kentucky is the 2 seed, 26-7. Purdue 27-7 as the 3rd seed, and you got UCLA in there at 25-7. So Carolina played Kentucky and Purdue this season. You got a couple blue bloods in that top 4 as well with Kentucky and UCLA. So looking at that top 4 in terms of this East region, really challenging kind of group right there. Some really, really good teams and some pretty powerhouse programs across the country. A couple other notable teams there. You got St. Mary's at the 5 seed, Virginia Tech at the 11 seed, the AC tournament champions sliding in there. And you got number 6 Texas in this bracket as well, or in the region, as well. So looking at this East region, AJ, it's a tricky one.
I'm looking at mine. When I look down, I'm just looking at my bracket.
I got you.
I haven't memorized it yet.
But it's a deep region. I mean, I think there's a lot of good teams in here, and obviously, if Carolina wins, having to play Baylor in that second game is a bit of a challenge too. So
the first thing that jumps out is, there's debate whether Indiana is still among the fabled 6, right? So it's been a long time since the Hoosiers have been all that relevant. However, if you include them in the fabled 6, and if they're not in the fabled 6, they're in like the TMZ between North and South Carolina. They're in TMZ, South Korea, excuse me. The TMZ between the fabled 6 and everybody. DMZ, excuse me. I'm all.
No, you're close. You're close.
My head is spinning, as you know.
Yeah, the last 2 hours,
things going on.
Last 2 weeks.
Gosh. TMZ, good gracious. Have another, AJ.
Yeah.
So they're kind of in that in-between zone, right? So you got Indiana, you got North Carolina, you got UCLA, you got Kentucky. I really like Kentucky in the bottom part of that bracket. I think St. Mary's could give them some trouble, but Kentucky's just too big, too athletic. They can drive at you from different spots. I think that Kentucky comes out of that side. I think Carolina's got a shot at coming out. I mean, they can also get blitzed in the first game, but I think they have a shot at coming out on that side simply because they're hard to guard. And I think college basketball right now, we're in a period where it's not, you don't advance just by playing defense and just being good in the backcourt like we saw before. That's how Connecticut essentially won a title several years ago. I think right now you got to score a little bit. And you got to make teams defend more of the floor so you can open things up. So Carolina has that. There aren't a whole lot of guys like Brady Manick who can score like he can in bunches, who's played 155 games in college basketball. There aren't many guys like that. Carolina's got one of those dudes. There aren't many dudes like Armando that can. We were joking the other night on Press Row. He's like Pac-Man eating those pellets when he's grabbing rebounds sometimes. It's like, it disappears into him, he absorbs the ball. There aren't a lot of guys like that, okay? Now, when Caleb and RJ are going on the upside, that's a pretty good tandem. The problem for Carolina is they don't go on the upside on a consistent basis, and with Caleb, it's kind of a roller coaster in the course of the game. They both struggled in Brooklyn, so maybe the law of averages will be that they're pretty good in Fort Worth. I think this team's going to be relaxed. I honestly believe that Hubert said physically tired, but Brendan Marks asked for clarification on that, and I believe that they were mentally tired too, and there's no shame in that. They've been through a lot. The overtime win over Syracuse took a lot out of that club. The whole Duke thing took a lot of it. Just to the mental strength to not get caught up in all that crap and just to be laser zeroed in on that game. Took a lot. And then they had to play a nemesis in their first ACC tournament game and took them apart. So I think, human nature, so they weren't totally sharp against Virginia Tech. And maybe best case scenario now, especially since they're playing Thursday, is that they were home Saturday, exhaling for a day off and had a light day Sunday, and they're back at it on Monday. I kind of like Carolina's chances. I'm not going to predict them to come out of that group, but I kind of like their chances. I like them against UCLA. I give them a fair shot against Baylor. This Baylor team might not be as good as last year's, but it could still win a national championship. And maybe they're not as good from the perimeter, but there aren't a whole lot of things they don't do well. I mean, they're in the top 50 in just about every noteworthy statistical area, or at least many of them. And Carolina certainly isn't. But on a given day, the club that went to Durham, the club that took on UVA Thursday night in Brooklyn, that club can beat Baylor. That club can advance to the next week. So I kind of like this bracket for UNC. I like it a lot for Kentucky.
Yeah.
I think right now Kentucky's probably – I haven't done my picks. It's not official, but Kentucky would probably be my pick right now to come out of that bracket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I could see that as well. You got a lot of really good programs in that top four, as you expect. But like I said, a couple of blue blood programs in there in Kentucky and UCLA. I think I do agree. This is a bracket that I think Carolina can do well in. But there are some challenges along the way. And obviously having to play a number one seed in Baylor in the second game, if you get past Marquette, is always going to be a little bit tough. Before we leave, AJ, last thing I want to ask you, because we're not going to go too long on this one. Looking back at Carolina's season, culmination of everything went down. 2 weeks ago, a lot of people were talking about if this team was even going to get in. Do you think a number 8 seed for this Carolina basketball team, when you look at how the season went down and where they're at right now, is something this team and something Hubert Davis in his first season can kind of feel pretty good about?
I think considering the fact that Notre Dame was the 2 seed in the league and they're starting out in Dayton.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Miami is a double digit. 2 of the 4 teams that got double buys in the ACC tournament are double digit seeds.
Yeah.
And Carolina is the 30th overall seed, which means if they didn't beat UVA, they're a double digit seed.
Yeah.
So the ACC was down. So I think this is fair. They got 3 Q1 wins. By the way, 3 teams in the bracket Carolina has lost to this season. That doesn't happen.
It's a good shout.
A lot as well. Let me throw another one out there to you, just to tease people a little bit here. Carolina's only been an 8 seed 5 times. Okay. They've only been the seeding started in 1979, and there have been 43 NCAA tournaments since, including this one. Carolina's been in 41 of them. They've been a 4 or lower 10 times. That means the rest of the time they've been a 1, 2, or 3. They've been a 27. They've been a 1 or a 2 27 times. But one of those times they were an 8 seed was at Austin, Texas. It was their first 8 seed in 1990. And the Tar Heels beat Southwest Missouri State. And then they beat the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, Oklahoma. Rick Fox hit a shot at the buzzer to knock off the Sooners. That was in Austin. So the last time they were an 8 seed, they like buzzer beaters in the state of Texas, by the way, because they had the buzzer beater loss in Houston the last time they were in Texas for the NCAA tournament. So, but as an 8 seed, I guess there's a precedent. Carolina can beat a number 1 seed at the buzzer in the second round in the state of Texas.
Okay, that'd be pretty cool. What a hell of a storyline right there.
Well, lightning does strike twice sometimes in sports.
It can definitely.
Yeah. So I guess we're thinking because who on this team would most be like Rick Fox? They don't really have anybody.
That's
maybe down the road of style. Maybe a leaky black bank shot. And then you have to everybody needs to Google this. Look that play up. Then you got the celebration afterward. I think King Rice had high steps or something like that. So I guess Caleb would or RJ would have to do the high steps.
Yeah, you got to have a high stepper. I'm a big fan of the high stepper after a win. No doubt about that. So yeah, I agree though.
Nothing higher than Tyler Hansbrough against Virginia.
Yeah, I was literally thinking that. I actually saw that in the ACC tournament documentary series last week when I was watching it. Funny enough, so that was fresh in my memory from that Virginia Tech game. But I agree with you, Edge. I think when you look at how Carolina's season's gone down, you look at how the ACC has been overall, you look at how their last 2 weeks have gone in particular, I think Carolina being a number 8 seed in the East region, a chance to, potentially face a number 1 seed has got to be an exciting prospect for this team. Looking at, I think this is still a pretty confident Carolina team, despite the loss of Virginia Tech. I think they're going to be feeling pretty loose and pretty good going in to the tournament next Thursday. So
I'll tell you what. Let's flip the question on Baylor. If you're Baylor and you're sitting there looking at North Carolina as a possible second round game, if you're Scott Drew, you're like, we're defending national champs. We just finished tied for first place in what might be the best league in the country, although the Big Ten's got a lot more bids, but I think the Big 12's pretty damn good too.
Yeah.
And we're a number one seed and we're playing in our home state. We got them to deal with.
Yeah, it's tough.
So
it's a good
that's
point.
the NCAA tournament. That's a beautiful thing. Look, Carolina, if they beat Marquette, Tar Heels get to 25 wins. And then at worst, they're going to be 20. At worst, they can be 24-10, but they beat Marquette. At worst, they're going to be as 25-10 with a shot to play a number one seed who's defending national champs in the second round. I think a lot of Carolina fans would have taken that and run about a month ago.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt
about it. Stick it in your back pocket, smile, and move on. So it's a great opportunity for the Tar Heels. I'm excited about getting out there, seeing what this club's made of, and I give them a decent chance at getting through. Not a great chance, but a decent chance.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch, AJ. Obviously, AJ will be out in Fort Worth. When are you flying out? You said Tuesday you're flying out?
Tuesday morning, because Wednesday, the NCAA tournament's great when you have the media stuff the day before the games. Then you have it in between. The day before a weekend begins at that site is our open practice. I assume they're going to do open practices like they used to.
I think so, yeah.
I'm hearing everything is basically returning to normal. Thank goodness. I don't know if the locker rooms will be open, but take what we can get to, right?
You're not lying
so
about that.
I'm glad that there'll be people there because last year was so weird covering them against Wisconsin in a building of a 14,000 seat building, 15,000 seat building, and there were about 3,500, 4,000 people in there. That was just too weird.
That's got to be bizarre.
And the plexiglass everywhere. God, it sucked. Man,
I remember that game too. I know like a lot of Carolina fans.
We're getting closer.
Yeah, we are.
Hey, there was no mask enforcement. There was no mask enforcement in Brooklyn, so that was great. I felt normal. So.
It really is, man. We even got to cover a couple, just covering this year and being able to go back in the Smith Center full was just nice. You know what I mean? After what it just seemed like an eternity, we've been able to do that. You know what I mean?
And I could add Fort Worth to my list of places covering games. I've been to Fort Worth before, but I've never covered anything there.
Yeah, it's not to cover a game.
So I'll have to pick up a Fort Worth magnet for my refrigerator.
You got to get something, man. Magnet.
Bizarre. I have that bizarre tradition going on fridge. My wife hates it, but if I got to deal with some of her stuff, she's got to deal with that for me, right?
Exactly, man. That's exactly how it goes. It's a good place to wrap this one up, though, AJ. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you guys keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com. We'll have a lot more as we dive into Carolina's NCAA tournament potential run here, which obviously starts on Thursday in Fort Worth, Texas against Marquette. Stay tuned for a podcast on that game. Stay tuned for a podcast later this week from Fort Worth as AJ will be there on Media Day. Ton of stuff coming. Like I said, head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Got a few articles coming up just on Carolina seed and Selection Sunday information as well. So looking forward. If you want to go read that one, click the link in our bio. You can sign up to be a premium member for just $8.33 a month. You guys know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well so you know every single time we upload. And we'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks.